Welcome to Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist, Dan Arnold, your host. Tune in for what's really happening every Thursday. That's Thursday at 9 a.m. in Studio A on Revolution Radio. They keep us in fear to manipulate us. They want us ignorant so we're easier to enslave. They make us murder one another so they don't have to do it themselves. Only you can break their mind control by healing the contradictions within your belief systems that allow you to accept their lies in the first place. The time has come for us to remember our divinity, who we really are, to return to what we are meant to be, a service to others, to return to nature, and to reclaim our birthright, that which is freedom. The truth will sound belligerent because it is in direct opposition to lies. So get angry, because anger is sacred, and together we can unite and rise. Rise from this darkness. Humanity, assemble. And good morning, happy Thursday morning. This is Morning Coffee Rants with Dan. I am the spiritual anarchist. Today is October 17th, 2024. It's a very synchronistic day for me. I'll explain that in a minute. If you have the extra and go to the main page here on Revolution Radio to donations, please, if you have a little bit extra, that's how the radio platform keeps going. If you can give a little, that would be great. That's how we all get to get up here and start speaking the truth and trying to break people's mind control and everything else we do. That's revolution.radio. I'm here every Thursday morning, Studio A at 0900 hours for all my former military people out there. That's 9 a.m. in the morning where I do my coffee rants. So today is October 17th. In the year of not my Lord, 2024, and it's the full hunter's moon today, largest moon of the year. And 1 month ago from this day, on the 17th of September, I was out bigfooting alone when we had the full moon in September, where there was a partial lunar eclipse. I just get into these types of little synchronicities. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. So today I'm going to be finishing up what I was talking about last week in my book, Rise from Darkness, Chapter 6. And I'm talking about manipulations, gaslighting, psyops, and different things that people will do. And I'm going to tie it in today and why it's so important with what's going on in the world. And before I do that, I talked about the freedom community, getting together, not only for events and in person, but just to know what, your fellow freedom fighters are doing, so to speak, to be on some type of page with them. So there's an event going on, being put on by Corey Enderlot of Nature is the Answer, Nita.1. Also, the Liberator 2, the Liberator.us, actually. And he's got a show going on called The Liberator 2, which is basically it's basically part two of the End of Slavery Summit that I got to be a part of a couple, years ago. And I've been advertising it on the very first day, which was the day before yesterday on the 15th. He, put my video up there, which I was thankful for. And I might be able to get on there and even talk today. I might be able to go live today. I was supposed to help co-host it, but I wasn't able to. I had some family obligations that came up, and I might be able to get on there earlier today. But what I mean by seeing what each other's doing is I was very fortunate to, at least in the last couple of days, to catch the last maybe hour or so of the event. And the premise is people send in videos and he's talking about the videos. And I was really glad that I caught last night's event, because one of the things that I want to talk about today was actually talked about last night on his event. There is a book called End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. That's End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. You can find it. There's a PDF. You can just type that in, End of All Evil by Jeremy Locke. It's spelled L-O-C-K-E. And a lot of people probably heard of it, but if you haven't, you can get it for free. There's PDFs all over the place. And I wanted to start off by reading a couple of quotes that are in that book, The End of All Evil. And it ties right into what's going on and what I'm going to be talking about today. So, the end of all evil. Evil enslaves. Evil is found in words such as force, compulsion, tax, violence, theft, censorship, and politics. Notice that in such things there is no joy. None have any value to humanity. And this book defines a doctrine of liberty and teaches you why choices that affect your life can only rightfully be made by you and nobody else. The definition, this is another, I'm sorry, I'm going through a change of weather here in the Cleveland area, and I got a cold. It's not the cooties. It's just a normal cold. But anyways, I'm going to continue here with this next quote from Jeremy Locke. The definition of freedom is the infinite value of the human being. Everything that is evil teaches people that they have limited value. Think about that for a second. I've said in the past, there's memes going around, nobody loves the warrior until the enemy is at the gate. No, true warriors, people do love. True warriors leave you in your power. True warriors make you feel good. True warriors also have kindness that isn't always nice. True warriors don't do what they do for a paycheck. Now, everybody who's doing the work of trying to have, to try to achieve true human freedom, I personally thank you, from a guy who had been a cop for many years and worked in law enforcement and took an oath. The people who are trying to do this are fulfilling an oath they may never have taken to protect and serve. The problem with the law enforcement side of that, and I'm going to really try to adjust my message. I have sadly lost a couple of law enforcement friends that I, had a lot of respect for, still do. They're not bad people. I want to get to them. But some of my verbiage obviously can come across as, abrasive. And sometimes the truth is going to sound like that. It's going to sound abrasive. Also, there's this level of cognizant dissonance that you find yourself in because you're living within this contradiction when you're in that line of work. And it's the contradictions that we have to do away with. We really have to do away with those things. And I'm not talking about a hypocritical thought processes or being a hypocrite. Every human being's been a hypocrite about something. I have been, and I'm not no more. But I have reconciled all contradictions. And part of the end of what I'm going to be reading today is going to be going into what I consider to be the true 7 deadly sins, which is why next week I'm probably going to talk about what the real 7 deadly sins are and how they're warnings against excess. And how does that fit into the landscape of what's going on in the world today? If we can do a couple things, if we could achieve an end to the contradictive beliefs that we have, and realize that our energy does go on when we die and we're no longer afraid to die, their game is over because the whole world will stand up and say no. My message on the End of Slavery Summit 2 this week on the 15th, it's actually the Liberator 2 is what it's called, was simply a message to my order followers that you have to realize what true morality is under natural law and don't initiate harm, no matter what you're being told to do, no matter what the law says. If it's a law that doesn't create a victim, if the victim is a politician, it's not a law. It's pretty simple. But anyways, I'm not really feeling ranty this week like I was last week. We'll see if that changes. Part of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to be gaslighting, and it is insidious, and people do it accidentally all the time, and they don't realize they're doing it. And sometimes they do it in a contradicting way. If they're giving you directions about something and then something else, and there's a contradiction, they may not realize they're contradicting themselves. And I, coming from the background that I come from, I was used to a lot of ops. I had a lot of ops ran against me when I left the department. And I look at things completely different than other people do sometimes. And sometimes I ascribe a meaning to something that doesn't need to be there. I think we all do this. But that's one of the reasons why I want to go over a couple of philosophical things today. There's this principle from the 14th century by a man named William of Ockham. And it's called Occam's razor. And Occam's razor is a principle of problem solving that basically says the simplest explanation or solution with the fewest assumptions is usually the correct answer to something. And sometimes, they don't want us to have the simplest solution. They want things to be as convoluted and complicated as possible to keep you confused. They also want to make you in fear. They want to keep us in fear. Which is why sometimes I do put some humor into these things, because what's that one guy's name? I forgot his name. Oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I'm forgetting his name. It's terrible. He's got a radio show on here, but he always says it's the lighter side of genocide. Why not have fun if we're being exterminated? I just love that, because if you don't have a little bit of humor, you'll cry. I mean, honestly. But sometimes it is just the simplest solution, which also brings me to Hanlon's razor. And Hanlon's razor basically doesn't automatically, Hanlon's razor is never attributed to malice, that which can be adequately explained by incompetence or stupidity. Now, that doesn't automatically excuse somebody for something bad, but you do have to look at somebody's intent. So there are nuances to all of this. So Hanlon's razor is just basically, well, it goes with Occam's razor because sometimes something isn't always, menacing. Sometimes there's not always some, maniacal reason why someone's doing something. And that's kind of an important thing to talk about also. But I wanted to bring those couple of things up, and what I'm going to go into now is I'm just going to start reading where I left off at last week. And this is from my book, Rise from Darkness. And I realize if I don't start earlier, I'm not going to get done with it. So I don't want to do as much ranting ahead of time. I haven't pre-read this time like I did last time, so I may stop and talk a little bit. But I started last week with the self-victimization, and is a tactical manipulation that is used to be viewed as the victim in any given situation and thereby validates actions or lack thereof. This comes from the inability for the manipulator to self-reflect. It is a refusal to accept responsibility or the possibility that they may be wrong in any given situation. Now, I'm going to stop right there, and I'm going to continue reading at the next section, which is gaslighting. That's all I'm going to read about self-victimization. What I've seen in my own personal life with this is that people have the inability to admit they're wrong on anything. Okay, and I'm going to get further into why this happens. But people think if they are the victim, then they somehow are right, and they are correct in this issue, and they use that victimization to manipulate you. Because if you're a good person, let's be honest, if you're a good person and you think you've brought some type of hurt to somebody else, you're not going to feel good about yourself. So we aren't responsible for other people's feelings and emotions, although we should, take care not to needlessly be mean. I was once told by a very wise spiritual woman that I've talked about on the show before, Psychic Sonya, giving you a shout out if you're out there listening, that it's okay to be mad. It's okay to be angry, but it's not okay to be mean. The only thing that I will adjust on that is sometimes kindness isn't going to sound nice. Sometimes kindness might sound mean. I was very supporting of somebody, but when that support was doing nothing but aiding their dysfunction, and it was also going to bring certain type of harm to me, I had to not be nice anymore. It doesn't mean I wasn't being kind. All right. So continuing, gaslighting. Gaslighting is defined as to manipulate someone by psychological means into questioning their reality and questioning their own sanity. Gaslighting is a form of psychological manipulation in which a person or a group covertly sows seeds of doubt in a targeted individual. This is going to sound familiar to some people, maybe even triggering. Making them question their own memory, perception, or judgment, often evoking in them cognitive dissonance and other changes such as low self-esteem, using denial, misdirection, contradiction, and misinformation. Gaslighting involves attempts to destabilize the victim and delegitimize the victim's belief. I'm going to break here. When they're doing this, because people do this all the time, it's because they want to win a debate, they want to be right about something, or they're trying to manipulate you in some way. And it could be as it could be as something as simple as they're just playing games with you, just to see, how you'll react. A lot of times they want to test your reactions. Okay. I've seen this dozens and dozens of times. And one of the things that I do when this is happening is, like I said last week, I usually don't play the game at all. I'm not even interested. But sometimes I will play along a little bit just to see what they're doing. So there are certain exceptions, especially if it's somebody who's an acquaintance that you don't want them to be manipulating you, that you're not expecting it from them. And this could be also from a friend or a family member. Okay, so the victim and delegitimizes the victim's beliefs. Okay, such as, that wasn't me. I didn't do that. You're over exaggerating. Oh, that was just a joke. That's the biggest one. Dude, I was just joking. Okay, so let me continue. Instances can range from the denial by an abuser that previously abusive incidents occurred to the staging of bizarre events by the abuser with the intention of disorientating the victim, such as removing your keys from an unlocked gym locker to then return them after you have been unable to find them. In my case, I caught the dude red-handed. Gaslighting is an extreme form of coercion that is usually done on a small scale, but can be accomplished on much larger scales depending on the agenda. The nuts and bolts of how a gaslighting propaganda psyop are done remain the same, however. They first desensitized, then sensitized their targets to high repetition. Disinformation causing mass spread misinformation, coupled with forced isolation. Classic psyops and called indoctrination tactics. They want to play to the target's fear, and in my personal case, attempt to physically intimidate their target. I'll break real quick right here. Many times in my world, it's hard to physically intimidate certain people. So they're going to try to do things in a different kind of way and get you confused on things. The forced isolation is another thing. There's a difference between purposely kind of breaking away from everything for a little bit, like on a sabbatical journey for solitude, and actual forced isolation through things. And sometimes you end up being force isolated. If they can isolate you, then they can really get you to doubt your mentality. Anyone who's a target individual knows this. Okay, I'll get into some counter things you can do. Well, I'll get into them right now. If you find yourself a targeted individual and they're doing these things to you, just take pictures of them right in front of their face. 95% of the time, you're going to be right. Who cares if you're wrong 5% of the time? Just take pictures of them. They don't like it. They'll go away. I actually started posting them on a public Facebook page, and it didn't take long for that page to get taken down. So that was kind of funny. Anyways, I'm continuing. They will seek to thwart or steal their target's confidence. This is a big deal because confidence equals competence, and they don't want you to be competent. They want to steal your confidence. They don't like that. More confidence equals more capable, and they do not want this. People think it cannot happen on a world level. It can and does happen in all hierarchical oligarchies, which is what our current world and government setups are. As recent world events have shown, the constant bombardment of media propaganda for fear of a virus many feel was faked is a perfect example of how easy it is to have that desired effect on a mass scale. So what I want you just to remember about gaslighting, everyone's like a Facebook psychologist now. I talked about that last week, but gaslighting exists. They want to get you to doubt your reality. Don't doubt your reality. Okay. You know, what you're seeing is a show, and they want to confuse you. That's why I don't vote. I have nothing against any of them. I just don't believe in that system. I don't believe the vote actually matters. I think one of the candidates is a clown. I think the other one is, they're both actors doing exactly what they're supposed to do. I think the current guy has probably more crushed up Adderall and cocaine in his ice cream than any human being alive has ever had. And the whole thing's a joke to me. There's my rant, I guess. Politics only are for lunatics, and ticks are parasites. Taking a coffee sip here. Gotta have my coffee with my coffee rant with Dan, or it would just be Dan ranting. I'd have to change the name of the show. So, continuing, they are never wrong. The idea that they are never wrong ties back into gaslighting, except this occurs on a more of a personal one-on-one level. This also circles right back into ego gone rogue. When someone's ego is completely leading them, they simply will never admit to being mistaken or wrong. They will tell their side of a story to anyone willing to listen. This is a validation-seeking and ego-based, fear-driven action to avoid any possible shame from others. Again, fear of shame rears its always present ugly head. Actions of this nature are shameless. Healthy shame should be faced, but when someone is never willing to be wrong, they lack the ability to self-reflect. And folks, after a while, when you're trying to help somebody who's like this, if it's a person close to you, I can just tell you from personal experience, it's sad, but you have to come to a point where you set a boundary and you don't allow that boundary to be crossed, and you put them out of your life, no matter who they are. You distance yourself. After you've done so much, you've done your job. Okay, you can lay down the truth, put down the truth. There was an interview I seen very recently with Derek Bros and David Icke, and the last question he asked David Icke was one of the same questions I asked David Icke when I interviewed him a couple of years ago. How have you stayed in this so long? When I think of the aggravation I have just 5-6 years into this, and then I look at somebody who's been doing it for 30, I'm blown away. But his answer is always the same. Once you know the truth, how can you not continue doing it? So, Mr. Ike, if you're listening and you ever hear this, just know this guy that was an ex-cop that you interviewed, just stranger, who's a nobody nothing, a couple years ago. I'm still on the job. I'm not out there like how I want to be, but I'm still on the job. I'm not stopping. And there was something else I seen a post of, speaking of Derek, that he posted that I really dug. Once you awaken, you can't go back to sleep. And I'm going to tell you the truth, and I'll be putting it in my next book that I'm currently writing. I tried to go back to sleep, and he was right. You can't. It doesn't work. Okay. All right. So continuing, they lie. That's what this is called. And I'll start reading. Duh, of course. And the longer they tell themselves that lie, the more sincerely they can tell you that lie and be astonishingly convincing while doing so. Sociopathic narcissists can pass polygraph tests with flying colors. They have no conscience when it comes to hurting others in any way. Often, these people are at war within themselves, and you may be just collateral damage if you are nearby. Do not let them make you their scapegoat. I'm going to break here for a second. When you're helping somebody, this person may look at you as being above them in their mind. Sooner or later, they may scapegoat you for the person that's the problem, for all their problems. This is somebody, again, that won't look in the mirror and doesn't want to take personal responsibility for what ways they are wrong. Until humanity can actually start with themselves, and we start individually, and then we help people around us, and the people around us help them, and that's how the whole world will wake up. All right, continuing. Understand, people create conflict ahead of time when they know their actions. Yes, they'll plan this conflict. Trust me, it's planned. When they know their actions or lack of will be wrong, such as a sibling who plans on elderly exploitation of aging parents or grandparents. They may want to create conflict between themselves and you, and ultimately you and their intended victim, to keep you from preventing theft by deception. As everything is fractal, that means self-similar. This happens on all scales. We have recently witnessed this on a global scale, in my opinion. They are also always agenda driven. They have a plan, especially if they know they will or are planning to have a conflict for you. I once had a person, I'm going to break real quick, who I wanted to squash things with. They had spent days pre-planning every possible argument because for them it was a mere debate. They weren't there for discernment. They weren't there to squash a problem. They wanted to win a debate. I'll get into that later. Continuing. They will be sure to wargame their responses and rhetorical questions in advance. We see this all the time in the dirty world of politics. On a personal level, dealing with someone like this is more than likely going to be a rival at work, or a lazy, jealous, and usually secretly resentful family or friend, family member, or fake friend. Frenemies. Trust me. Some of the people you think are rooting for you aren't. They're jealous. I don't know why that is, but that's just the way it is, man. And I'll go over that in envy in the 7 deadly sins when I start talking about the contradictions found within the 7 deadly sins. Let me go back to where I was at here. And I had something else I was going to say, but I'll just continue. This person is more dangerous to you than an outright open enemy is, because you have probably taken them into your confidence. They know you well. They will use what they know against you if it furthers their agenda, even if that agenda is nothing more than appearing as a victim. Understanding, people tend to pay forward the hurts that they themselves have been a victim of, especially parental abandonment issues. We all have some type of abandonment issue, by the way, which I believe many, if not most people, have to one degree or another. Understanding the fear-based actions of why some people act the way they do will greatly aid you not taking their transgressions as personal. There's a grace to be found in understanding that we cannot control the unjust actions of others. And if those actions are not a physical threat to anyone, there is no need to. That's been a problem. That's been a problem for me. A lot of what I write in my books aren't because I'm some awesome guy who has never been a train wreck. It isn't because I'm some awesome dude who thinks I know everything. It comes from my own experiences, my own mess ups, my own mistakes. I won't dwell in these mistakes because it's disempowering. I'm not going to dwell on that sparring match I had of 4 rounds of boxing and how badly I got beat up. What did I learn from it? How did I get better? And how did I win in the future? That's how we move ahead. You don't want to dwell and ruminate over the losses in your life. That's going to cause mental problems later on, even worse ones. Okay, when someone resents you for something or has ill intent toward you, pay attention to how you feel around them. This is so important. Pay attention to your own intuition or gut instincts. They will rarely lead you astray. This is especially important when resentment turns into open contempt, because this is a sign of potential violence. Violence that they in their own mind have already set the stage for, or they may think, to be justified in committing. Think about what's going on in the world and the atrocities happening in Palestine. People think that it's justified. I'm not, when I start talking against the state of Israel, I am talking against the state, the government. There's people in Israel who are regular people who've actually protest what's going on. They get beat up by the police. I know they're the police because they're wearing blue, and they actually look more brutal than the IDF, to be honest with you. Violence is never justified. This can be seen at the root of the word violence, which is to violate. Violating another's sovereignty in any way is a form of theft and is a transgression against natural law, and it is violence. Now, violence, you don't have to wait to throw the first punch. I've said this before. Violence isn't just the mere act, and I'll be getting into that into a second. You can see the precursors to an attack coming if you know what you're looking for, or if you're trusting your gut instincts. It's not hard. Okay, you just got to be aware of them. So pay attention to your gut instincts. They are a product of thousands of years of evolution, dating back to when humans really had to hunt for our food, hunting animals like the woolly mammoth that were as likely as not to kill us as we were to kill them. As humans, we are basically animals also, and are not exempt from the food chain. Our ancestors had to stay on guard from carnivorous predators like the saber-toothed tigers and other large ice age cats and dogs and bears that wanted to kill us, that wanted to eat us. It's basically our brains and our opposing thumbs that allowed us to become the dominant species on this planet. But we are relatively weak to a lot of the other mammals we have coexisted with throughout history. So at our core, we are still part of the animal kingdom. We do have instincts and gut feelings. The problem is we become too civilized. We have dulled our senses. Or I should say that we as the human species have become so used to accepting contradicting principles in everything, especially religion and politics, that we no longer listen to our nature-given intuition. When I spent a few nights alone in the woods and had returned to nature, I did have an animalistic feel to me. All my senses were just alert, especially at night. That full moon 1 month ago. And our senses have dulled because of noise pollution, light pollution, because of the perfumes that we have and all the things that they're putting in our soaps. If you get out to nature, ground, stay in nature for a little bit, you'd be surprised at how much your intuition will start to come back to you. Moving forward to signs of possible violence, because remember, if they're setting up the stage to do violence against you, they want to look like the good guys first. They want to set the stage to look like the victim, and they had to do what they did. And if this is somebody that knows they can't beat you in a physical one-on-one fight, and their ego's that messed up about it, they want to escalate it to a point where they feel like they'll be justified in using a firearm or some kind of weapon against you. And this fits into what's going on in the world, because everybody in the world right now, in this country especially, is so divided over, and they're doing it expertly to us. They want to drive people to a point of complete chaotic violence where people feel justified in using it. And it is justified in self-defense. And when we're talking about self-defense, you don't have to wait till somebody has already hit you. Real self-defense, you've probably already taken a hit, to be honest with you. So learning how to fight injured is an important thing. One of the things I used to do with my students would be I'd spin them around in circles with the lights really dim, or put on a like one of those flashing lights, and that's what would be in the room. I'd spin them around in circles like really fast, grab them, and then throw them to the ground, not like hurt them or anything. Make them stand up disorientated and dizzy, and then make them hit pads, make them fight, because that's the closest I could safely come to trying to get somebody to understand what it might be like to fight after you've already taken a hit. And you have to fight, and that's time is going to be coming. Okay, so the following are signs to be aware of, and they can indicate agitation, a mounting anger, or violent mental health issues. Keep this in mind. You're going to see this. And you do not have to wait till they throw the first punch. If you see these signs, violence is probably going to be directed at you. You need to be taking some type of, reactionary measures to protect yourself. Okay, the first sign, shallow breathing. This is indicative of an adrenal response, and they're getting ready for fight or flight. Your breath gets more shallow. You'll see the respirations change. Clenching and unclenching their fists. This is indicative that they are getting loosened up. They may punch at you or try to grab you. This is also often accompanied by puffing up their chest and, rolling their shoulders, and you'll see them start maybe blading their body. Pacing. This can be caused by nervous energy and adrenaline needing to be released. It is also indicative of potential for violence. Intense, unwavering eye contact. This is pure lizard brain stuff. The only time eye contact is that intense is when one of the 4 F's have taken over. Okay. 4 F's: flight, fight, fornicate, and food. The 5th one is freeze. This one's the fight or flight. When they're staring at you like that and they're starting to slowly close the distance, you become the most important person in the world. They're about to attack you. Unblinking stare with emotionless facial expression. They may be experiencing a severe anxiety attack or unknown psychosis, both of which can turn violent very quickly. Baring or showing of the teeth. This can be a snarl without the verbal growl. This is a ferocious expression and is an unmistakable warning sign. When you see any more than 2 of these things in tandem with one another, they could be getting ready to get violent with you. And this is ego-driven. Think about this. We are murdering people in this world. Human beings are murdering other human beings over the same bearded guy in the desert sky that everyone calls God, who's really the devil. Jesus was trying to teach the truth of natural law and that we are all beings of light. And he got crucified by the order followers of his time for it. I'll get more into religious things later. But nothing's changed in 2024 years. The same thing's going on. They have Pontius Pilate and the Pharisees were pointing the finger at one another while the order takers of that time carried out the orders they were given regardless. The same distraction techniques are being used now with politics. Meanwhile, the world is doing what it's doing. Still, we already are in a one world government. They just want to make it official. Between November and March, there's going to be a lot of craziness. If you want, just my personal opinion of what could happen, this could happen. Imagine, if you would, that Trump was to win the election and the left-wing base goes absolutely insane nuts. Then God forbid later on down the road, something was to happen to Trump. We see all these different assassination attempts going on. Well, what if one of these times they get him? Well, now the right is going to go completely nuts. You could put the rest together. You can connect the rest of those dots. All right. So this next one is going to be very big of somebody who's manipulating you, because you're going to be in a constant battle. Their auric field's going to be nasty. You're going to be in it, and it's going to be nasty. You're going to be in a constant battle with them. A constant battle with yourself. This is why I say be very direct with people. Always be very direct if you start to feel this. And then when they do anything that's gaslighting, call bullshit on them and simply walk away. Simply walk away. Don't even give them an explanation as to why you're not doing what you're not doing or why you're leaving. They don't need it. Okay. So this is a big one. When you're around a person that's manipulating you, period, you will feel drained when they leave. You're going to maybe even physically tired. If you're being manipulated on a personal level by someone, you will feel drained when they leave. This is because you have been on the defense the entire time and that they were present with you, but just not consciously aware of it. Or our subconscious minds are far more powerful and perceptive than our conscious minds are. Our subconscious minds are always picking up on the finer nuances, including the vibratory energy of the communications taking place, while our conscious minds are listening only to the spoken words. These people are true energetic vampires who feed off the sympathy of others, especially those of us who are a bit more empathic. Being empathic, if you are a true empath, you will constantly be at war within yourself around these energetic vampires because you can feel their underlying vibrations and real emotions, which they are putting out. I can almost do this through texts. I can do this online. I can almost do this like if I'm reading an article, I can read between the lines on stuff. It's really crazy how this happens. And here's another thing about being an empath. People always want to say that they're an empath. They're an empath. Everyone's got the ability to have empathy for others. It doesn't make you an empath. True empaths aren't these people with psychic abilities or gifts. I'm going to tell you right now, people who are true empaths, that empath it's born of an abusive childhood because your caretakers never made you feel safe. So, knowing their feelings and emotions, being able to ahead of time tell what they want to not upset them when you're little, is how you grow up to become an empath and to be able to see the truth of things. Once you become an empath that has boundaries, you are a narcissistic sociopath's worst nightmare. Trust me. Uh, let me continue here. All right. Their vibratory energy is usually in direct opposition to the words they are speaking. Empaths, in this regard, can be real human lie detectors, but all too often have weak boundaries with others. Yes, that's true. Personally, I had to work hard to find a middle ground with this. I just admitted that. Meaning, I was either a complete uncaring asshole or a people pleaser, which is far worse on one's mental health, in my opinion. Finding the middle ground with setting healthy boundaries without being mean takes having confidence in yourself, and in most cases manipulators want to steal your confidence if they have not already. Remember, these people are predators, even if not the physical sense. A predator of any type does not want to fight. They want to select their targets based on probability of success. Like, no, not him. He looks like he would put up too much of a fight. Or no, not her. She looks like she's too alert and assertive. Most of the time, they are looking for someone who already appears to be scared or distracted. So you should endeavor to cut the appearance of a confident and alert person. Remember, the predator selection process will be predicated upon his desperation for whatever resource he perceives you to be. And this resource sometimes can be just public standing. Okay. I see that a lot. You can see that a whole lot. Let me go back here because I was thinking of something. Yeah, like a predator isn't going to want to fight another predator. A predator wants an easy target. So you have to not be an easy target. And knowing is half the battle, as they used to say in the GI Joe cartoon. Coming to the next part, they use people and love things. The primary characteristics of a sociopathic narcissist manipulators is their lack of empathy for others. They have a self-centered, solipsist, complete self-absorption worldview. Nothing exists outside their own needs and survival. They will step on anyone in any way they need to achieve a given selfish goal, and they may have. They are just as comfortable looking at other human beings as numbers on a graph or pie chart as they would be looking at numbers for any inanimate objects. These people may also have left brain imbalances, which make them overly analytical, logical, and overly scientific. They will hide behind a facade of scientism to achieve whatever their end goals are and are completely incapable of holistic heart-based intelligence, which is a balanced combination of data and intuition working together. They are also unsympathetic to the real needs of anyone in their personal lives, but especially the personal needs for autonomy, which all human beings desire and need. So, uh, when I deal or think about dealing with certain people in government agencies, because we see the weaponization of law enforcement being used against political enemies. And I think of these people's ability to interrogate you. I've been through interview and interrogation training, at least basic level. I've done plainclothes stuff. I've seen ops on both sides. I look at some of these people, knowing what I know now, and I don't think I'm better than y'all guys. I really don't. Some of you guys are trying to do the best job you can within a corrupt system that you, police and military out there, actually know it's corrupt and screwed up, and you're doing the best you can. But as soon as you start to reconcile those contradictions, you're going to leave. You're going to leave that line of work. What was I going to say? Completely lost my. Oh, they could be really smart at interrogation and investigation, but they don't have any holistic intelligence. In which case, I really do look at most of them as dumbasses. If they believe the main narrative that's going on, it doesn't matter how they can make you go in circles. They're dumbasses. Keep this in mind and realize that. If they don't understand the truth of what's happening in the world, they have no deeper thought process other than what they're told. Now, see, this is the difference between somebody who's researching to find out the truth versus someone who's researching to validate an already held belief. People who are looking to validate an already held belief will go to no end to research anything they can to validate that belief and present that as their scientific evidence. You know, this is what we're seeing where people in these positions, as soon as I hear experts say and scientists have said, blah, 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 it's who paid them? Whose payroll are they on? I worked in a medical government facility and seen doctors lie all the time. Terribly, actually. You know, and the doctors are like the third leading cause of death in this country. So, and they lie. You know, that oath they took, they're not following it. The majority of them aren't following that oath to not bring harm. If they can't help, the oath basically says it's a Hippocratic oath. It comes from Greece, and I forgot the guy's name, but there was just a whole episode on it done by Sarah. People may know her on here. It was a good episode. It tells about this belief, this philosophy that a Greek doctor had about you don't bring harm to others. And if you can't help them, you at least don't hurt them. Well, I've seen them purposely hurting people. We all have. And they're doing it for money. Now, everything that I just talked about in the rest of this, how it fits into the world, think about what's going on. You can be a change. It's not too late. Sometimes I get a little down and I'm like, oh my God, we've lost. Oh, this is, you feel like, again, you feel like you're trying to save somebody from drowning and they're hitting you in the head with a brick at the same time. You have to let them go. But that doesn't mean you don't try to, do it again or save someone else. Maybe that next person won't have the brick. Maybe they'll be more open to listening to what you have to say. Everything that I talked about as far as coercion is concerned in this, gaslighting, coercion, manipulations, the disclaimer is this: they're not always bad. The disclaimer is they don't always have malevolent purposes. Sometimes it's just a test. It's certain people like me don't like tests. And there's others like me. I can't always, ascribe some type of malice, to that. We shouldn't, actually, because there's so much of this in the collective. Sometimes people aren't doing it on purpose. That's just something to realize. But when you do know they're doing it on purpose, which all our governments are doing to us on every level, you realize that it is in opposition to God's natural law, the Creator's natural law, because coercion is a form of theft. It's theft of your free will choice. So in comparing the 7 deadly sins to the real 7 deadly sins, the real 7 deadly sins kind of align with the 10 commandments to a degree, but the actual 7 deadly sins are warnings against excess. And I'll get more in depth into those next week. But to go over real quickly, what are the real 7 deadly sins? They're things that are transgressions against natural law, such as murder, Okay, that's the unlawful taking of someone else's life. If someone punches me in the face and assaults me and I hit them with a brick and they die, that's my right to self-defense. It's not my fault that they did something that precipitated my response to defend myself. In that case, it wouldn't be murder. And even the law would call that manslaughter. They don't call it murder, even man's law. But it's wrong to murder. You're stealing a life that's not yours to take. But killing sometimes, as they used to say in Arkansas, I had a Southern trainer in Arkansas that said once, some people just need killing. I could think of a few of those people, and they're probably out on an island right now. The next transgression against natural law, which would be a deadly sin, is do not rape. That's taking away the consent. And when I worked in a prison, I talked to many, many criminal psychologists, and rape is never about sex, it's about control. Do not assault. That's pretty simple. I'm not talking about defending yourself. I'm not talking about hitting somebody first who's displaying all these different nonverbal signs they're about to attack you. You don't have to wait. But actually just hitting somebody because you're in a disagreement with them, you're not winning anything. You're not there, for discernment. Don't trespass. Don't steal. Don't coerce, which is a gaslight, and don't lie. Some of the personal notes or takeaways that I got from all of this, and I've got a couple minutes left. People seem to want to debate to win and not for discernment. Communication should always be a form of space of discernment or from a space of discernment. Ego always will seek to be right. This is not truth and it should be avoided. People seem to be intimidated by confidence in others and will try to knock you down instead of lifting themselves up. I talked about this last week. You must be willing to learn, but also have boundaries. Being a people pleaser and lessening your confidence for the comfort of others profits no one. This leads to major internal conflicts that can contribute to the deterioration of your own mental health, well-being, and will eventually manifest or grossly contribute to physical health problems. And I'm going to stop here for a second, which is why if between the two, I'd rather be a dickhead than a people pleaser. Continuing. Understand that personal attacks leveled at you instead of the actual topic being discussed should not be taken personally because these attacks come from a space of insecurity within that person. They have nothing to do with you and everything to do with with what that person perceives as something they are lacking and they're projecting. This can be anything from a physical attribute to a personality trait or even something within your possession, which includes your accomplishments. Do not allow yourself to be distracted by emotional arguments, argumentized cherry picking of ancillary topics, not main to the main discussion, not to the main discussion. This is a desperate tactic to be right about something within the main topic and typically has no real substance. It comes from a space of internal anger they are not yet able to fully identify with or unable or unwilling to articulate. Okay, I can and never will be capable of taking any discussion seriously when being right is the other person's objective, regardless of agenda. If they cannot convince me through educating me, they will have no hope of convincing me through coercion. Okay, I'm coming up almost on the end. I got a little more time left. Understand that when someone is attempting to gaslight you, they themselves can be in a state of cognizant dissonance about whatever the topic is. Sound familiar? I just seen a lady going down the hallway the other day. She didn't look like a left-wing smug voter to me wearing a mask. She was really frightened. So that's something I'm aware of too. I have also seen this accompanied by Stockholm Syndrome. And for those who don't know what Stockholm Syndrome is, it's developing sympathetic emotional feelings towards your captors, like, Republicrats and Republicans. All right. Let me see here. Where was I at? This was a good saying. I'm going to end today's show with this. When an orange is squeezed, what comes out? Orange juice. What comes out of an apple if it's squeezed? Apple juice. When put under pressure or squeezed, what comes out of a human? Blood? Physically, yes, but metaphorically, no. What comes out of you is the character that lays within, and it points to what you are made of. This is what we can see what is coming out and change it with a focused, righteous anger and willingness to resist that which is squeezing us. we can accomplish a great many positive changes in the microcosm of our own lives, and indeed in the macrocosm of the world. We can rise from this darkness only when we can become unentrenched from our egos long enough for deductive and even inductive reasoning to occur, long enough for us to admit we're wrong. And till next week, folks, stay safe. Peace.